Yes.
Please be seated. So Pulkit, tell us something about yourself.
Ma'am, I am Pulkit Bajaj. By profession, I am a doctor. I have done my MBBS from Maulana Azhar Medical College, University of Delhi. Currently, I am pursuing MD in anesthesia from the University College of Medical Sciences, University of Delhi. My hobbies are
anesthesia.
Yes, ma'am. My hobbies are I like to watch and play football. I like to watch cricket, and I have developed a penchant for watching movies that are related in and around the Second World War.
Second World War. Okay, I understand that. Tell me, they say that the Second World War was only a continuation of the first. Tell me why. Why do they say that?
Ma'am, the roots of the Second World War were laid in the Treaty of Versailles in the First World War, where after harsh terms were imposed on the losers of the war, especially Germany, there started a political movement in these countries where fascism developed, and there were myths regarding the stab in the back theory and such, which were propagated by the fascist rulers in like Adolf Hitler, which eventually led to the outbreak of the Second World War.
Calm down. You don't get so nervous. Huh? Okay. Tell me, how do you think India handled the Delta variant of the COVID and the initial stages of COVID?
Ma'am, I can say that I have first-hand experience with the Delta variant because I had started working as an intern right in the middle of the second wave. I think that that the percentages of mortality in India were less than around the world because of the early vaccination program that had started. But given our large population, those...
Delta happened before the vaccination started, if I'm not mistaken.
At least the healthcare workers and the elderly population had started getting at least the first doses. I had gotten my second dose in February itself. So we can say that since at least the percentages were less due to various factors, but given our large population, the absolute mortality was extremely high. It did not help that political rallies were being conducted around the country. Meanwhile, political leaders were saying that please stay in your homes, though the dichotomy of messages did not reach the public until it was too late. I felt that there were quite a few lacunae in administrative and practitioner coordination, but slowly and steadily they were filled to a large extent. So I can say that.
If now that COVID has started up again, do you think that the precautions taken by the Indian government are sufficient?
Ma'am, considering the latest case loads, at least in Delhi, there have been no cases for the last 4 days. We can say that India is not in currently not in any danger, or rather in very less danger vis-a-vis COVID is concerned.
Tell me, what are the great achievements of Indian medicine over the last 70 years?
Ma'am, in the last 70 years, we have seen that when we achieved independence in 1947, the life expectancy of the average Indian was 32 years. In the recent estimates, it is close to 70 years. And the
79, I thought. Okay, 70.
The government aims to increase it to 80 years by 2047 when we achieve 100 years of independence. Other than that, the load of diseases like tuberculosis have reduced. Recently, in the last 20 to 30 years, we can see that with our vaccination programs, the incidence of communicable diseases have drastically fallen, and non-communicable diseases have taken their place as...
Have we eliminated any diseases?
And we have eliminated leprosy, we have eliminated polio when the last case was in 2011 in West Bengal. We have, as the world has, we have also eradicated smallpox from the country, and other diseases, various parasitic diseases have also been eliminated to a further extent.
Very good. Thank you. Please.
Yeah, so you watch.
I'll just interrupt if you might.
Please.
You mentioned tuberculosis. How many deaths annually in India?
Sir, in lakhs. The deaths are in lakhs.
That's right. You see, so everything we have not achieved anything. In the area of tuberculosis, we have not achieved anything. Am I right or am I wrong? We are having more deaths on tuberculosis than any other disease.
Yes.
So it's a major issue in our country. That's it. Go ahead.
So firstly, continue what was asked you earlier. Do you believe in government statistics, or you think they are very very unreliable?
So I have not seen much data from credible sources to say that the government statistics are completely unreliable. Although we can say that there have been allegations that government changes a few minute details, but all in all, I am inclined to believe the government statistics.
Okay. Now, for example, let's say dengue. For example, dengue is reported as in few hundreds in Delhi the last few months. Now, would that be a fair estimate of the actual incidence of the disease in Delhi? As per your you're right there in the trenches and you see it yourself in the hospitals.
So, dengue actually has a spectrum where it can range from mild fever to a fulminant disease. So, many people who have, and the average dengue disease lasts for 5 to 7 days, which is the critical period. People who do not get that much affected by the disease do not go to a healthcare center, and they are not reported in the official statistics. So this condition happens almost everywhere with a lot of diseases. So we cannot solely blame the government because
No, I'm not blaming the government. I'm saying are the statistics correct or not? If you don't report to the health center or to the agencies, obviously it won't be reflected. So that's what I meant actually. Are the numbers that come out in the papers or in the statistics, are they a true reflection of the incidence of the disease? That's what I meant. I'm not blaming the government.
So considering this phenomena, I think they're underreported to all.
So you think even COVID was underreported?
Yes, sir.
For this reason only that people didn't report it to the...
Yes.
Okay. Now next question. Now you said you watch films on Second World War.
Yes.
Very, very interesting. So what kind of films? Hollywood films only, or you also see the Japanese and the Russian, the German ones?
Sir, I have seen a few, 2 Russian films and a German film. And all in all, mostly Hollywood films only because...
So Hollywood films, do you think they depict the way the Second World War was conducted in a very balanced manner, or do you think there's a tilt?
So one of the
American Anglo side?
Sir, they completely disregard the eastern frontier of the war. They act like it was only after the American entry that the tide of the war turned, and they do not accurately report the contribution of the Soviets and the other countries. Like even they sometimes underreport Britain's efforts in turning the tide of the war.
So tell us some films that you've seen.
So my favorite film on the subject is a 2007 film called Valkyrie, which stars Tom Cruise. That is my favorite film. It is about the 20th July plot that was to assassinate Hitler. Otherwise, sir, the films that I like are Dunkirk, which was released 5 years ago in 2017. Otherwise, sir, Operation Mincemeat, which was released in 2018. And in older films, I have seen Escape to Freedom, which was released in 1987. And I have also seen Downfall, a German film about Hitler's last days, which was released in 2006.
Can you tell us about India's contribution to World War I and World War II?
So, India, as a part of the British Empire, India automatically followed the Allies in both the world wars. We can see that there have been reports that the Indian casualties were one of the most. Indians suffered as compared to, as long as deaths are concerned, they were one of the most affected nations, which is widely underreported in visual arts as well as cinema as well as TV series. When the movie Dunkirk was released, it was actually panned by many people that there were 9 Indian divisions involved in the Dunkirk frontier, and they were actually underreported that not even one Indian actor had been cast as an extra or as a lead character. So I think they are widely underreported. We can see that the India Gate has thousands of names of Indian soldiers who perished in the First World War, because that was the original intention of building the India Gate. India actually had a very large contribution. Even countries actually support and honor Indian soldiers more than the British Empire themselves. Like Indian movements in Gallipoli and other areas of Europe are widely appreciated by the countries that are there today, but not by the Allied powers themselves.
So can Bollywood do something about it? Can we do something about it?
So Bollywood has.
Sorry,
I'm sorry to.
Now, can we do something about this imbalance in the depiction shown and correct show the real contribution that India made?
Sir, considering that Bollywood is a money-driven enterprise, the Second World War does not hold that much sway in the minds of the common Indian. So there have been very limited efforts to show the World War in films. There have been films like Ragdesh, which actually showed the INA trials, and there have been recently in 2017 a film called Rangoon was released, which showed the plight of Indian soldiers in the British Army at that time. But we can do it, but I don't think that they will be commercial successes, because as I said, that the Second World War does not hold a very strong position in the minds of the common Indian.
What was your optional subject in the mains?
Some medical science.
Medical science.
Yes.
Just a question. I mean, there is one doctor, Indian doctor, whose name is associated with an antibiotic. The only antibiotic that is associated with an Indian doctor.
I'm sorry, but I don't know.
Anyway, Dr. Subalo, actually. So whatever it is, medicine, you have studied medicine, you are doing MD now. Okay, so how do you see, for instance, non-communicable diseases or lifestyle diseases have been spreading like an epidemic, be it obesity or cardiovascular disease, kidney problem, renal failure, and so on and so forth. So, everybody knows that it requires what do you call it, the lifestyle changes, exercises, and so on and so forth. So, can you trace, during our own history, can you trace it to a period, or can you explain, how this was being tackled at some phase of our history as a student of medical science?
In our history, for example, if we go to immediately after independence, lifestyle diseases were not given much attention, because at that time the life expectancy was very low to actually see the burden of lifestyle diseases in general, because they usually happen after 60 or 65 years of age. Slowly, when our life expectancy started increasing and the burden of communicable diseases started coming down, only then, after a long latent period, were we able to see the actual effects of the non-communicable diseases. There have been government programs like National Program for Prevention of Cardiac and Respiratory Diseases, and recently also there have been partnership programs between district hospitals and private hospitals to stem the tide of cardiac, respiratory, and malignant diseases.
But is it a medical intervention, or so what is the lifestyle change that is to be?
So lifestyle changes, there are general lifestyle changes which cater to all diseases, and there are specific lifestyle changes for different type of diseases. In general lifestyle changes, there has to be shunning away of high calorie, high fat diets, and there has to be a regular exercise. The recommended period is 30 minutes per day for 5 days a week. For specific diseases, for example, for high blood pressure, there has to be an increase in intake of potassium, which comes naturally from products like bananas and asparagus. For heart disease, there has to be shift to keto diets, which is a very recent phenomena, where the body actually when the person stops intake of carbohydrates and starts intake of fat, then the storage of fat actually decreases. That has been seen in studies.
So, in this present context, this Bharat Jod Yatra, it's organized by a political party. Now they have been walking from Kanyakumari to Kashmir. So do you think it has a health dimension?
So a health.
Every day they are walking 20 kilometers. So do you think it is of significance in the context of the health issues, challenges you are confronting?
Sir, I don't think that the intention of the yatra is to inculcate a better lifestyle, but inadvertently, by walking 20 kilometers a day, it is actually way more than what is recommended by medical practitioners. So I think inadvertently it is helping, but there also has to be seen that exercises have to be tempered according to a person's condition. We also saw that a person died of a heart attack due to exertion during the yatra itself. So I think that when a person is healthy enough, walking 20 kilometers a day might actually be beneficial. But when he's suffering for comorbidities, these exercises also we have to be tempered down.
You explained that the increase in lifestyle expectancy from 32 to 70 due to medical intervention, and that's what I could understand from your answer. But what about the role played by democratic system of governance in enhancing life expectancy?
So, for example, government programs related to decreasing infant mortality rate and maternal mortality have vastly helped to increase the life expectancy. Because life expectancy is a skewed marker where if a baby dies before reaching the age of 1, the life expectancy drastically comes down, and it does not accurately show that a person is expected to live how many years. So I think that programs like the university.
This is a government program. I see democracy as such. So you mean to say that democratic method of governance is essential for creating conditions for the increase in life expectancy and ensuring health and wellness.
So not only democratic systems, but we have also seen that during the Soviet era, when the Soviet era started in Russia, the life expectancy was also very less. But by the 1960s, they had the second largest life expectancy in the world. So saying that only democracy is essential, I don't think that there is quite enough evidence. But there is also a provision that a democratic country cannot, a democratic party or a government cannot disregard the requirements of its population, because in the end they have to win the next elections. So I think that the ask for better health measures will invariably lead to more focus of the party of the government of the day towards such measures.
Of late, there is an emphasis given by the government on duties over the rights. There is a Kartavya Path today we have, which was earlier known as Raj Path. Now, so why, is it an appropriate way of focusing attention on rights, duties?
So I think that in a welfare society like India, the role of rights and duties have to be balanced. Where in a democratic government, the democracy actually entails rights of the common citizen. But considering our internal and external threats, I think duties also have to be given due importance in this time.
Okay, now there is a talk, you are a student of medicine, and you are pursuing medicine, you are doing MD in anesthesia. See, there is a talk about the basic structure of the constitution. So as a aspirant for civil services, and of course as a citizen, how do you look at this debate on basic structure, and what is the basic structure?
So the basic structure of the constitution was broadly laid down by the Supreme Court in the case of Nanda Bharti judgment, where they said that the basic structure actually tells about the intention of the constitution makers and attributes of the constitution without which it would lose its character. And the court left it open-ended and put it upon himself that in the course of time, with various judgments, they have added various other aspects to basic structure doctrine. I think that I always consider the government and judiciary as being sword and the shield, where the government has the power to take away rights. It is the duty of the judiciary to protect the constitutionalism of this country. So I think that, and in the past also, we have seen that the basic structure doctrine has been used by the judiciary to put down certain decisions of the government in the eventual to further the rights of the people themselves. So I think the basic structure doctrine is actually very essential to our democracy.
Please.
Few rapid questions, okay? Rapid answers. Any Oscar nomination, Second World War?
So Dunkirk.
This year, just now.
So I'm not aware of that.
All Quiet on the Western Front.
So that is the First World War.
World War,
All Quiet on the Western Front.
Have seen it?
Yes.
It's a classic. You must see it.
Yes, sir, I am planning to see it.
You're fond of football.
Yes, sir.
Why is it that India doesn't figure anywhere in football? Have you ever thought about it?
Yes,
Why
sir.
doesn't India never? You see, World Cup football that is playing and Messi is playing. I keep looking out for some Indian player and Indian team. What's wrong?
So the problem is that at the grassroots level, there have not been sufficient infrastructures. For example, which was also seen in the case of similar case was in hockey, where when the AstroTurf was introduced by the International Hockey Federation, the Indian team drastically declined because they were more suited to play on the natural grass surface. In recent times, there have been investments and focus on grassroots football, but the results of these measures will be seen 5 or 10 years in the future, because the children who are introduced to this sport at the age of 9 or 10 will actually take 10 years to become full-fledged professionals, and only then we can see the focus.
Do you think a lot of attention is being given by the schools and etc. to sports?
So recently the Prime Minister said that
I'm not asking Prime Minister. Prime Minister is where you're living.
Sir, treating sports as an extracurricular activity and not an end in itself, I think, has damaged the condition of sports in this country. I think we have seen that, for example, the American model, where they offer scholarships and scholarships to students who excel to us in any sport to a certain extent, that can be emulated, which has been tried by by Indian universities as well. For example, in Delhi University, there is a specific percentage of marks that are awarded to people who excel at various levels of the sport. But I think that this has led, and also sports quota in government jobs, but I think this has led to people playing sports with only the intention of getting into colleges or getting jobs, and not for the benefit of the sport itself.
Okay. There is a controversy going on Pfizer as a vaccination. Your views on it?
Sir, the controversy is that there are reports that Pfizer is misreporting their efficacy data, and I have not actually read anything to the contrary of what they are saying, so I don't think I can comment without perusing the valid data.
Something very important, because the entire world that sent Pfizer vaccine, most of the part of the world. So we must be concerned about it. And of course, India did not take it, and for good reasons. But all over the world, Pfizer has taken. Now, if its efficacy is the problem, then as a student of medical science, what you must think about it. What's your view? You don't keep any view on this.
Sir, I think that as far as medicine or any other science is concerned, having valid data and statistics is invariably the bedrock of scientific discovery. And I think that if it is actually found by other independent agencies that they are misreporting data, I think accountability has to be fixed. New data has to be published as well as publicized.
Okay. So there is no new data. There is no data on Pfizer.
I'm sorry for my ignorance, but I have not seen any such.
There is one new drug for diabetes which is very prevalent in the Western world, especially America. Do you know the name?
So I'm sorry, it slipped my mind. I had read about it, but it has currently.
It's a tongue twister.
Yes, so that is right.
Segregative diabetes. Is it?
I'm not sure.
It is creating furore in the world, this drug, because its effectiveness has been data matched and put in the world pharmacy domain also. And so I thought you advised me on this because I was looking for some advice. And you watch cricket as well. I'm not going into medicine, I don't know much, so I'm moving on to cricket. So what do you think about Indian cricket? What do you think of BCCI? What do you think, forget about it, what do you think of BCCI as a cricket corporation of India?
So, considering that the level of
It promotes cricket. I want to know what your views on BCCI is.
Sir, I think that considering the craze of cricket that is in India, BCCI has a very large responsibility of catering to 130 crore Indians. And I feel that that is my personal opinion, that it has been politicized to a certain extent. The Lodha committee recommendations actually tried to remove politicization by actually advising that no person involved can hold a public post as well as a post in the BCCI, and they also put in provisions regarding cooling off period on holding positions between state and state associations in the BCCI. But recently those provisions have been diluted, and I think that there has like, for example, the recent provisions in the Indian Olympic Association, where 25% of the general body as well as the board have to be sports persons with exceptional skills. I think these provisions have to be followed in the BCCI as well. Recent measures like appointing famous and well-endowed cricketers like Saurav Ganguly and recently Roger Binney to the highest positions in the body, I think it will help to streamline cricket operations.
But do you have any views on who should head the BCCI? Or should non-cricketers, people who have had nothing to do with the game, have had no background of the game, should head BCCI?
So I feel that sport in India actually is plagued by people who have nothing to do with the game itself from heading the bodies, which can also be seen in the recent Wrestling Federation of India controversy. So I think that it is better if people who have actually played the game head the bodies, as is seen by the success of FIFA as a body and other football associations as well around the world.
Pulkit, what has been the contribution of India in the past in the medical profession per se? I mean, do you think that we are imbibing everything from the West and just blindly following what comes from there? Or are we concentrating on certain things which India has contributed in the past, and is enough research happening here in India now on this front?
Sir, I feel that India has a long-standing tradition going before the Christian era with medicine and surgery as a science. We have had, when the entire world was roaming in lion cloths, we were actually having surgeons in India who were operating cataract, and that similar procedure is slightly tweaked to form the modern cataract surgery as well. So India has had a long-standing tradition. As far as traditional systems of medicine are concerned, the main issue I believe that with these systems is that there is lack of published research so that the world can peruse at it. That is the reason that these are slightly distrusted around the world and even in India itself. We can see that the recent push towards traditional medicine invariably actually has a provision that more and more published research, peer-reviewed research will be enhanced in this country, which will help them become a modern full-fledged industry. Recent initiatives like the incubation centers for traditional medicine research have been successful. And as far as imbibing from the West is concerned, we can see that the initial vaccines were produced in the West, and how these vaccines have actually helped to cure and prevent a lot of diseases that were plaguing India for the last 100 or so years have helped. So I think that the people are naturally gravitating towards them due to first-hand experience that they have had in this. I think, and recently India has quote-unquote become the pharmacy of the world, where the production capacity of India has helped to actually help a lot of other nations where these medicines have been developed, but they don't have the production capacity. So I think that India is finally regaining its place that it had a couple of millennia ago in the global medicine industry scene.
Do you think we are creating a knowledge share and a mind, leadership position on that side?
Sir,
or are we still followers? I mean, producing the medicines here is one thing. We can keep producing. We have the backyard of everything in any case. So, but are we doing something cutting edge which gets us into leadership positions?
Sir, we recently have a new vaccine against human papillomavirus, the Cervarix vaccine, which is actually cheaper and a better alternative than the other Gardasil and Cervarix vaccines that are currently available. So I think that is an example, and that is only a start. I think as the focus towards research improves, this will naturally improve, because I believe that India has some of the best minds in the world.
What is your view on privatization of medical services?
So I think that privatization actually helps to bring in investment. It helps to bring in global best practices. But privatization also includes a vast section of the people who are, and in India, that section is a huge number. I believe that primary and secondary treatments should actually be a government's domain, which has also been seen that recently the government share in primary and secondary healthcare has gone on increasing, because that is what is concerned with the majority of the people. In tertiary healthcare, the government obviously faces a cash crunch. And only in tertiary healthcare, I think that 2/3 of the investment is private investment and 1/3 is government investment. I think as primary and secondary healthcare increase in scale, I think the requirement for tertiary healthcare will automatically decrease, and it will help the government to actually focus more on tertiary healthcare, because if the cost intensiveness decreases, then naturally our resources are more helpful in that regard.
The whole primary, tertiary, and secondary medicine was built on a hub and spoke model and was tuned to working of the past because of lack of technology, etc. Is there anything new that is happening to kind of change the entire thinking with which medicine has to be, sort of medical facilities have to be provided to the countrymen?
So I think that the primary, secondary and tertiary healthcare are only required when people actually get sick. At the primary level, there have been programs to enhance the health-seeking behavior of the people, like awareness programs and Anganwadi programs and other community-level programs that actually decrease the requirement for secondary healthcare by stemming the tide of diseases at the primary stage itself. So I think that as long as we contribute to community-level programs and local grassroots-level programs, the requirement of medical services can automatically be decreased.
Any idea on digitization of medicine and telemedicine?
Yes, sir. The Ayushman Bharat program actually has a digitized platform to it, where there is a healthcare workers directory, there is a health facility registry, and there is a health ID specific to the person. Otherwise, also I am privy to a pilot program by the Public Health Foundation of India, where they have community workers who are called Swasthya Sakhis, who go to communities. Currently, it is happening in Sonipat in Haryana, where they connect to doctors via telemedicine, where the Swasthya Sakhis are the first contact the people have to the medical profession, and these Swasthya Sakhis connect these people to practicing doctors, where they solve the problems of the people via telemedicine. This is still in the pilot project which started last year. So I think the results, when it finishes next year or a couple of years later, I think the results will enlighten us further on the probability of this.
What is government doing to improve the quality of this thing in hospitals?
So there has the National Health Policy of 2017 actually said that 2.5% of the national GDP should be engaged in healthcare. At the time, it was close to 1.5. After COVID, we have seen that the expenditure has increased to close to 2.1%. I think that coming from Delhi government hospitals, in front of my eyes, there has been an increase in ICU beds and oxygen facilities in Delhi. So I can attest that a lot is being done and a lot will continue being done in the future, I'm sure of it.
Any views on NABH, etc.?
So I'm not actually privy to the workings of the NABH.
You think corporatization of medical services, especially like MACs, they actually contribute a lot to the society's medical services? And a question to that, won't you prefer a job in MACs where you get lakhs rather than going into a district level, becoming more of a bureaucrat?
So I believe that in a country like India, there are far more easier and quicker ways to earn money than becoming a doctor. And in my experience, not many first generation doctors like myself entered the profession for the sole intention of earning money. That being said, the condition of district hospitals is still leaves a lot wanting. That is why people gravitate towards larger centers. As we can see that the packages, quote unquote packages offered by private hospitals are huge, and they are very difficult for any person to turn down, let alone people who don't come from strong financial backgrounds. I think that corporate medicine has to be treated as a profession first and foremost, and like every other profession, they have the right to earn according to their skills. That being said, medicine is not only a profession, it is also a service which is to be provided to a large number of people. And there are certain people in the large country like ours, there are a lot of people who willingly continue to practice in government services, where we can see that people with degrees as long as a whole slide of a presentation are still continuing in substandard government hospitals. So I think that...
Why civil service? Why not a career in medicine?
So-
That's what you...
So because as far as money is concerned, that was not my main intention to do any profession. Otherwise, I consider this a service in a different capacity, and not only, I don't see this as a dichotomy, but I see it as a different dimension of service and a diversity of challenges that I can tackle in the future.
How, as a medical degree, will you be able to contribute in the civil services?
So if I'm allotted the administrative service, I can actually act, because I have seen grassroots level district planning, and I can actually contribute more because I have spoken to a lot of people in my 2 years of service currently. I have spoken to a lot of people who suffer from these diseases and the problems that they face in seeking healthcare. I can help that. Otherwise also, as far as every degree is concerned, not only the subject, but it also provides me with an inquisitive bend of mind that can help me to tackle a variety of challenges.
Now, I think the interview is over. Pulkit, would you mind waiting outside, please? We'll discuss your issue and then come back.
Yes. Thank you.
So, Pulkit,
Yes.
tell me, how did you think your interview went?
Ma'am, I think I can read more about the factual information, and I can actually take some time to collect my thoughts before speaking. That is what I felt.
Yes, definitely. You are a very impressive candidate. You have an excellent chance of getting in. We're very happy with the way you handled your questions. Just a couple of things to help you. Okay. Your body language. Are you going to shave?
Yes, ma'am.
Please.
Ma'am,
It's
yes.
very important because
Yes.
this is very untidy looking.
Yes.
Okay. Now this thing you're constantly fiddling with your buttons. Just leave it open.
Okay.
And you're nervous, your hands are shaking, but it's okay. You can maybe even keep them on your knees. Yeah, that way then we can't see them.
Yes.
So if you fiddle with them, it doesn't matter. The other thing is, you barely wait for the question to finish before you start speaking. Even if you know the answer, think for a second and then speak.
Yes.
Okay, pause and make sure you have understood the question, because a lot of people will ask you trick questions.
Yes.
Okay, and you go off in the wrong direction, which is not correct.
Yes.
That's one thing. Remember, if you were, say, a district magistrate and there's been a disaster in your neighborhood and the CM is asking for things, he'll ask for something, but you have to, think before you speak. Don't just da 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 da. It doesn't look. It's not very effective. Then I'm mentioning that particularly with regard to your answer on democratic polity versus health. You got it back onto the track, but you started off in the wrong direction. So you didn't listen to the question properly. Okay, and your answer to why you have moved out of medicine, it's okay, but think it over a little more, because there's such a shortage of medical doctors. To have a medical doctor waste his expensive training on the bureaucracy where anybody can do it.
Also, then what happens is that Ranadan is a government subsidized hospital. Seats are very, very scarce. So this question is bound to be asked. You deprive somebody else of a seat there, and now you're not following up what you studied and now shifting your sphere. So is that a fair thing to do? Should doctors be allowed to, who at least come from a government subsidized hospital, to switch sides? These are questions you have to then know your answers thoroughly and stick to your ground with the proper arguments.
Yes.
Okay, please.
You are an excellent candidate, and I mean, the positive things are that very good reflexes, communication ability, articulate and expressive. What I found is that you need to have a little poise and a little more composed. You are just, I mean, you keep firing back very quick. So I think that is required of a civil servant. And of course, your answers are quite impressive. But then personality is good. So you have a very wonderful chance to get it.
You know what happens is, that once you're, जैसे गाड़ी छूट रही है, so what happens is that the impression which one gets is that you're not putting a lot of, though you know it, you're not putting a lot of mind behind it. You're not putting it. So just relax and give your answer. Take your pauses. There's no hurry. Right? Then we get to understand that he's thinking, processing the information, and then analyzing it and then putting it across. All things happen together, but just a little.
Yes.
Same here, I think I had written a few things, absolutely good otherwise, but you can improve
Yes.
and make it far more impactful with the amount of knowledge and this thing that you have. So I think body language is stiff, you need to relax. I mean, internally you need to be relaxed. I think you are thinking too much about it as an interview, etc. Number two, most interviews do well when you are communicating as if it is a communication happening. I think we are all saying the same thing in different ways, rather than answers coming in a firing fashion. So you need to be communicating as if it's a discussion that is happening. So if you take the pauses, so what it also does is that if there is a monotony in that speech, it's at one pace, tuck 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 it comes. So it becomes less impactful. So those are, I think, few things that you should improve. Otherwise,
Yeah, I'll just suggest one thing that might help is from now on till the date of your interview, every day you read 2 newspapers. One general, usually the Indian Express is good, and one financial newspaper. Take out important points and make it like a bullet point presentation. Most important point first, point. And just keep rereading. Go up to about 50 questions which are likely to be asked. Okay? Because unfortunately we didn't ask you that much on, outside the medical field, which perhaps we should have. Okay? You know your medical very well, that we are sure of. But other matters maybe you're not that clear. Okay? So do that and every day go over them and keep updating. So that at the back of the mind you already have the answers to a lot of likely questions. And it will be much easier for you to speak when your time comes. And pause a little.
Yes.
Vary your presentation a little. Talking to people. There's a difference between and smile, be nice, be polite. Think of us as the people the other side as your uncles.
Like you said,
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Conversation.
Yes.
Because that like this, is not the best way to get it.
This is the first interview?
First attempt, sir.
No, this particular mock interview.
No, sir.
This is the first one.
Second one.
Second one.
You're very good, you're excellent, and you have a very good chance. Just keep these things in mind. These are minor improvements.
and for that answer from medicine to this side, to my mind, think about what is the healthcare facility in the country, how it needs to be improved, what are the shortcomings, and why a doctor should probably go and do it. I mean, that could be, if you have a well-formed view on it.
You can say that you can contribute more to the health of the people in this country as a bureaucrat than as a doctor in a small little place.
Yes.
Okay? That would be a good answer. Okay? Any questions you have for us?
Yes, ma'am. I wanted to ask that, for example, topics like you mentioned, like economics and foreign relations, how likely am I to be asked technical questions from that?
Technical, no, but we're very likely to be asked. That's why I'm suggesting you must do a daily update of the main points that are raised in the newspaper and make points.
Overall general aspects of or specific technical
So, what did
percentage.
you think? When's the interview?
So the date hasn't come yet.
Okay, so you must read about the budget.
Yes,
The
yes.
history of the budget. What is the budget? And this special budget is going to be presented on first.
Yes.
So what are the various things that go into the budget? What are the priorities of the budget? What have been the priorities over the last few decades? How things have changed? All those kind of things you must have a very firm grip on.
And just read the newspapers, the headlines, like what are the important things. You can't know everything, so don't worry too much, okay? You can't know everything. Whatever you know, you should know in depth,
Yes.
okay?
Thank you.
One question that I didn't ask that time generally.
Yes.
To understand. Yes, Second World War का कहाँ से? Where did you get this sort of bug to see the movie? Because somebody may ask this actually.
So initially,
Is it only to give the interview that you kind of put that through? or
no sir. Initially, तो it was by chance कि ऐसी अच्छी लगती थी तो पहले तो जब when I was like in school तो इतना ध्यान नहीं देती कि किस टाइप की मूवीज अच्छी लगती है. Slowly I started realizing कि I'm more fond of these movies. Even movies उनकी जिनकी rating
बहुत specific हो गया ना?
जिनकी
Second World
rate-
War movies is, I think I can understand. Somebody saying Second World War movies is like.
Ma'am, it started actually when I started noticing it. It was like 7-8 years ago when I felt कि जिनकी movies की rating अच्छी भी नहीं आ रही मुझे वो भी अच्छी लग रही हैं जो usually होता नहीं है. तो that is what I felt कि then I started reading also about it when I was in college initially. तो मुझे थोड़ा सा वो होता है ना कि वर्चुअस साइकिल से बन गया कि वो अच्छा लगने लगा पढ़ने में तो वो देखने में अच्छा लगा कुछ देखा तो उसको पढ़ लिया तो वो साइकिल सा
So
बन
you were inspired by readings about it
Yes,
and you were very interested.
Yes.
No, good enough. Okay.
Thank you.
Maybe all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you.